Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I think I have my microphone ready to go. Welcome back to this post Christmas broadcast. As I'm trying to rest myself from seasonal depression, but we are here and we're going to talk watches. I'm sure some of you already saw the video I posted yesterday. I'm trying something a little bit different. I'm trying to have videos that are dedicated to specific subjects, specific segments, since I still don't have a proper editor and I'm too lazy to chop up live streams. I think I'm just going to dedicate some of my time to make those videos, because the live streams themselves, as great as they are, in terms of staying in touch with you, in terms of starting conversations with you, in terms of talking watches with you, they're not so great in terms of growing our community, in terms of enlarging the number of subscribers on YouTube. So without further ado, I hope you do take a look at that video on the recent news concerning the revival of Universal Genève. As you might know, Breitling has just acquired the brand about 2 weeks ago, and they have some exciting developments in terms of relaunching it. So I wanted to share that with you. If you didn't watch it, put a bow on it, hit the like button, spread it among friends. I'm sure there will be other people, other enthusiasts, other collectors who would be interested in it. So feel free to share. Obviously, you know how long-winded I am. It was supposed to be 15 to 20 minutes. I left my eyes to wrap up what I wanted to say, and it had been already 40 minutes. So it is what it is. I'll try to be more brief. I'll try to be more succinct in the future. So since we are at it, let's take a look at a few different things that I've been posting on Instagram that I've wanted to talk about over the last few days. Well, this was wonderful. Gégé Lecoutre, after the party, invited us, my friend Ben and me, for a quick watchmaking class where we had two examples of the dual face movement. And the watchmaker of the boutique, George, was watching over us and instructing us, just teaching us how basically the power is transmitted between the two faces of the watch, and how it's in fact possible, with the help of a 24-hour wheel, to move the hour hand on the verso side, on the verso face of the movement independently. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, much harder than I imagined. I always get very humbled whenever I'm given any watchmaking related task, but it's also always quite marvelous and really makes you appreciate what the watchmakers actually achieve, what they put together at that level. It's hard not to be enchanted by it. It's hard not to be fascinated by it. And I thank Gégé Lecoutre and George for the experience. Milan apparently had a holiday party where they were killing the watch game. I mean, there were a few different highlights with Raphael Leon wearing a blue dial Cartier Santos, among others. But I think this particular couple, Theo Hernandez and Zoe Cristofoli, were basically the prom king and prom queen of the night, since they were wearing two very interesting pieces by Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. Theo was wearing, but Theo, by the way, is one of the captains for AC Milan, and he's also a left back who, along his brother, plays for the French national team. He was wearing the 5980 in 18 karat pink gold, the Nautilus with the flyback chronograph, and he was wearing it on this khaki green custom rubber strap, which is an interesting touch and certainly a good look for the watch. And Zoe was wearing a lovely AP, an AP Royal Oak. And it has that new ice blue dial that they introduced last year for the 50th anniversary. And I think from the size of it, it looks like the 41 millimeter. It looks like the reference 15510 in white gold, but it's not always an exact science, as you guys know, but that's what it exactly looked like. Not my kind of girl, but I like the watch, so we'll have to give it a pass. This is Ben, and this is a watch that I stole from the wrist of a friend who just had it resized, actually, or just had it sized, I should say, because he was committing the cardinal sin of wearing a watch that he bought but hadn't worn. So I appreciate that he actually did. Ben, my friend Ben, was bitten by the bug for a few months now, and I think I bear some share of responsibility in that. So I do apologize, but that's his. That's the watch that he pined for a while, even though he started his collection with a stainless steel Sky Dweller with that silvered white face. But I think the Bluesy is, of course, classic, and I think a watch that carries the everyday a little bit easier, a little bit more, I don't know, both more casually and in a more interesting way, but that's my taste anyways. I've never been a huge fan of the Sky Dweller. Um, I know whenever we talk bad about the Sky Dweller, someone appears in the chat, but perhaps that's already water way under the bridge. So I'm not going to say much about that, but it's always nice to see different kinds of submariners in the same frame. I was actually quite disappointed that I was wearing my Breguet Type 20 that day. If I were wearing my 5513, that would have been an interesting trilogy of submariners, even though those two are obviously from the same generation, from the Submariner 45, so to speak. But it's still interesting to have a Submariner, two Submariner dates, one and two tone, and with a different kind of dial, one with the green ceramic bezel, which kind of revives that 50th anniversary Submariner that was introduced in 2003 and that people still to this day affectionately call the Kermit. And then, of course, it had to be him. It had to be Sly. I always love bringing up Sylvester Stallone on the Instagram, and not only because he gets a lot of clicks, but also because he is, I think, a true dyed-in-the-wool watch guy, a real enthusiast, of course, in addition to being a man's man. And this is actually a shot from an exhibition of his paintings from last year, which happened in Germany. And it was a retrospective, basically, that brought together all his paintings. It's a very interesting story. If you think about it, it's a very interesting part of the Sylvester Stallone story, because even though to some, at least, he has remained for a very long time in the shadow of his arch rival Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think Sly is a little more unique, if you ask me, a little more interesting, a little more approachable, a little more vulnerable in a way, and someone who has tried just about anything to find the proper form for his self-expression. And in fact, painting is something he did even before he started writing screenplays and scripts. And in fact, a lot of his paintings take on subjects and characters that he has explored in his filmography as well, Rocky, Rambo, and many other characters. And I thought it was really interesting that he always seemingly chooses a watch that is appropriate for the occasion. I mean, this was driven home to me when I started seeing him promoting the first Creed movie, wearing that gold sub that he bought for himself after he found his first breakthrough success with the original Rocky. And here I thought, what a beautiful occasion to bring out the good old Patek Philippe Nautilus Jumbo, seemingly a 5711 in stainless steel, for an art exhibition, right? I think among all horological designs, it's really Gerard Janta's pieces that have that sort of aesthetic quality, that kind of artistic flair. You can call them sculptural, you can call them by some other name, but certainly a Nautilus or a Royal Oak or one of Jarajanta's many creations would be the appropriate watch to wear on an art opening. That was his 75th birthday as well. It's kind of unbelievable that he's 77 years old now. And this is from Malaysia, actually. You might know this couple, at least you will know Michelle Yeoh, who is, of course, an Academy Award winning actor. She just married this guy, Jean Todt, who used to be the Scuderia Ferrari team chief at perhaps its most successful period, with Schumacher's back-to-back championships and their back-to-back constructors championships. I think he also served as the Ferrari CEO for some time and was the lead executive for FIA as well. Jean Todt is, of course, also known to many of us with his striking watch collection, which we have covered here last year, about 13 months ago, when he basically liquidated most of it with the help of Christie's watches under the heading of legendary and unique watches on November 6th, 2022. In hindsight, because remember when Passion for Time happened last month in Geneva, there was this whole talk about the third-party guarantor and how it was this unique and novel thing. And sure enough, I've said the same thing, but now that I got more informed and read up about the latest debacle, latest controversy concerning that Passion for Time Mohammed Zaman auction, I actually learned that the Jean Todt auction was also involved a third-party guarantor, and it was in fact the same US-based investment company that guaranteed the Jean Todt auction as the one that guaranteed the Mohammed Zaman Passion for Time auction. And the latest update on that is that the parties actually came up with a settlement. So everything is fine and dandy. It seems that there won't be any more troubles with those watches that were sold for more than, I think, 37 million Swiss francs for that auction. I don't think the sales are frozen anymore, and those watches should soon find their new homes. Yeah, all the joking aside, apparently after this lovely couple actually got married after 19 years of engagement, 19 years of being engaged. They have continued the ceremonies in Malaysia as well, in Michelle Yeoh's hometown, Ipoh. And they were wearing some beautiful watches when they were doing that. Michelle Yeoh was actually wearing the new Aquanaut Luce chronograph, which is the first chronograph that was introduced in the Aquanaut Luce line, which is kind of the feminine counterpart to Aquanaut, a lot of times involving some sort of extravagant gem setting. In this case, you have a mother of pearl dial that has the same distinctive lobescape pattern that we associate with the model line with the Aquanaut design in its contemporary cast. There are multicolored sapphires used as hour markers. And the bezel actually has 2 rows of precious stones. Let me actually just pull up a picture of this from Patek's own website. There we go. Inside you have baguette cut diamonds, which are then surrounded by a rainbow of sapphires, so gradient, multicolored baguette cut sapphires that encircle the inner setting of baguette cuts diamonds. She was wearing it on the red tropic style rubber strap as well. And Jean-Todt was actually wearing his Tiffany Nautilus Jumbo. The reference 5711 line 1A -018. So it is the one with the Tiffany blue dial. Tiffany stamped. At 6 o'clock, and commemorating, memorializing 170 years of collaboration between New York and Geneva, which is something embossed on the sapphire crystal exhibition back and also engraved onto the oscillating weight as well. Hey, JB, what's up, man? Thank you for $9.99. When you think back on 2023, what are the big headlines that come to mind? The Omega scandal, Rolex buying Bukhara, Robert Wood. Hey, man, nice to see you. Sorry I still didn't send out your package. It's been a mess. I'm glad I had it here at home, but my office got flooded. So this month has been a mess. So I'm sorry that I didn't get to it. But guys, hit the like button. Christmas was great. I had a lot of Chinese food. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Thank you for understanding. Okay, the big headlines that come to mind. I think you have already named 2 of the most important ones. We were just talking about the other one, right? The big, of course, the auction controversies that seem to have come up every season. Christie's unfortunately had to deal with 2 of them in the fall, right? There was the 11th hour involvement of the third-party guarantor, which ended up also getting them involved in some sort of legal controversy, legal debacle, which seemingly didn't go anywhere. So that's good for them. But not to forget, the Only Watch charity auction was also supposed to be organized by Christie's. And even though they basically give up on I think as part of their involvement in the charity, they probably give up um, on the majority of, if not all, of their profits. That was still a signal event for them. That was still one of the most important events they had of the fall auction season in Geneva, and it was altogether scuppered and postponed, delayed until at least next year. I think um, things that have been developing at Audemars Piguet are always very interesting to me as someone who feels very strongly about the brand, even though I belong to the camp that has been already largely alienated by their direction, at least since the last 4 or 5 years. So the fact that François-Henri Benamias is leaving, I don't know. I don't know if you have seen any of the publicity that has been surrounding it, whether it's the interviews, which do give some helpful insight into the vision that's been guiding him during his term, or that clown show of thing that they shot involving him and the new CEO Ilaria Resta, kind of sharing their season's greetings. Look, I don't necessarily think it's my place to say anything about their commercial direction or anything, but I hope this cringy self-presentation of Audemars Piguet that I very much associate with François-Henri Benamias and his tacky wardrobe. I hope at least that clown car passes, and we will see some class and dignity at the head of one of the most cherished and one of the most storied brands of the Swiss watchmaking tradition, of what we associate with the Valley. I mean, I'll just stop there because I can rant about the whole thing. But that to me is an important part of the year, the transition at AP with François-Henri Benamias moving out and Ilaria Resta coming in with a whole cadre of women at the highest positions, the director of complications, the North America CEO, the new CEO, global. They're all women. So I am waiting quite expectantly what will become of the brand over the next months and years. And I think we'll have to wait at least another 3 years to really see, 2 or 3 years to really see what kind of imprint the new leadership might start leaving on the brand. Product cycles are at least a few years old, even in this digital age. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to be patient. I'm thinking back. That's why I'm also scrolling to see what I have posted. Of course, the usual suspects, Watches and Wonders, and the year full of releases. For me, the highlights, ironically, since I've just talked about how it was canceled, it was really a lot of fun to see the exhibition of the watches that were involved in Only Watch 2023. That also brought a lot of eyes on my Instagram account, and even some eyes, I'm sure, on the YouTube channel here as well. So that was one of the highlights for me. Of course, like you were saying, JB, Rolex buying Bukhara and the whole, I don't know, the whole excitement that was created around that was really interesting. I don't think it will actually affect us and affect Rolex's own distribution for some time to come. But nevertheless, that was an interesting moment. I was really happy with what happened here. I was really happy with the introduction of Jaeger LeCoultre's collectibles, because once again, it's a brand that I care a lot about. I'll be right back. I'll continue talking. As you guys know, it's a brand that I care about deeply, and as much as I love the Reverso, as much as that is by far and wide my favorite design and my favorite model line by JLC, I think that brand has such a rich archive of designs, of models, of movements, that it really behooves them to shine a light on the great variety of pieces that they have in their past. And I think it is about time that Jaeger LeCoultre's role in the Swiss watch industry becomes something more than just an open secret, something more than just something that the enthusiasts appreciate. They have to play a part that's much more than a bit part, just more than a side role. Oh, another thing, of course, the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo bought a stake at Chrono 24 was really interesting to me. Of course, no one makes a mistake about his investment in watches. He has a lot of interesting and flashy pieces, but I didn't realize that he was in fact so invested. And remember, this is a guy who has an insane amount of followers on social media. 615 million. I had no clue. I was going to say, 200, 300 million. And we have, of course, we have plenty of instances where celebrities of this caliber, of this kind of status, kind of advertising or playing part in commercials involving NFTs and investment opportunities and this and that, but that he got involved in the watch trade and did so publicly and so openly was really interesting to me. Of course, he's not the only one. I'm sure many of you know that Tom Brady is part of the group that's invested in and that bought a stake in Hodinki not so long ago. Not sure if their investment has paid off. And I'm sure we'll learn more about that in 2024. I'm sure some of you know that Michael Jordan has has a significant stake along with some other athletes and investors in Watchbox, which is, I think, becoming at least gradually the 1916 company, which I don't know. I guess it was a compromise. Watchbox was just such a great name. And beyond that, I'm really losing count of how many times that company has changed names and merged and submerged and allied itself and connected itself to so many different things. I wish they just kept the Watchbox name. It was catchy, it was straightforward, it was simple. But I guess they, some marketing fool somewhere must have convinced them that this more cryptic signature thing with 1916 was going to be a better brand. Um, Whatever, again, it's not my business. Thankfully, isn't. Um, but sometimes this is way above me. Anyway, so for me, it was very interesting that Cristiano Ronaldo got a stake in Chrono 24 and did that so publicly, did that so visibly, and did that at this particular turn, right? Where, again, no one can deny at this point the downturn in the secondary market for watches. At this point, no one can deny that the best days are behind us. The purple patch has long been gone. It's solidly in the past. But there are still a lot of investment groups and a lot of other believers in the business, which of course is betrayed, which of course is perhaps revealed, I should say, um, when these sorts of investment companies emerge as guarantors in highly publicized instances of public auction, how they deem this the right moment to invest as much as possible on watches on the secondary market. Uh, and of course, right, the so-called bear market is always a great occasion for these kinds of investors. Y2K, thank you for your Christmas wishes. Thank you for your season's greetings. Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year. Lovely to see all of you. And yes, guys, let's congratulate, by the way. And I want to bring this up as well. Robert just welcomed a granddaughter. So, congratulations, Robert. Kiss the little one for us. What a beautiful, beautiful gift. It's a Christmas baby, basically, right? So cute. So cute. And that's her Plush toy. Amazing. That's really lovely. Um, on the 22nd. Okay. Yeah, almost. Almost. Congratulations. That's amazing. All right. So I do want to talk about an auction today. Of course, as always, you should feel free to direct my attention to anything watch related. Feel free to send in your watch related questions to me with a super chat. In the meantime, please hit the like button. It's always helps, especially for a small channel like mine. I still need the boost. Um, some of you might know Gandog from the chat. Um, he has drawn my attention to this particular auction. We have talked about Bukowskis before. Here's the link to the listing of the lots. Pardon me. Bukowskis is an auction house that's based in Sweden. I want to say they're located in Stockholm, but I might be mistaken. I might just make that assumption, but I'm almost sure that they are based in Stockholm. If they also hold auctions elsewhere in Sweden and perhaps elsewhere in Scandinavia as well, my apologies, but for the most part, I believe I've seen them do these sorts of auctions, curated to be sold online, but also held as live events in Sweden as well. This December selection actually includes an entire vintage collection of high beat timepieces that belong to Gandog, our community member. And apparently, he has helped the auction house with the write up as well, with the lot essays that accompany some of these watches. So we will read some of that as well. It says this, they say this month we can present a vintage high beat collection of 10 watches from the first manufacturers of the 36,000 VPH, 36,000 semi-oscillations per hour, 5 hertz movements. The collection includes notable timepieces such as the Girard-Perregaux gyromatic high frequency, the Favre-Leuba Harpoon 2, and the Zodiac SST. Throughout the 60s and the 70s, watchmakers around the world embraced different technologies in their efforts to produce ever more accurate timepieces. And honestly, that's part of why high beat movements are usually preferred. That's why they were pioneered in the 60s and 70s. Obviously, 36 vibrations per hour is just a fraction compared to quartz movements. So for that reason, the high beat technology as a marker of precision and accuracy has had this kind of short period of time where it had its heyday and did not really survive as prominently into our day, even though some manufacturers such as Zenit or Grand Seiko still take a lot of pride in consistently making high beat movements. New designs, new materials, new technologies such as miniature tuning forks and quartz crystals were all employed in a veritable arms race of development. I'm loving this so far. I hope this is one of the parts that Gandog wrote himself. Starting in the late 1950s with observatory competition chronometers and later in the mid-60s transferred into wristwatches, another approach was also explored, that of increasing the oscillating frequency of the movement beyond what had ever been achieved in a serial production timepiece to a frequency of 36,000 vibrations per hour. The theory was that a faster balance swing would have less impact on timekeeping variations due to positional change and variation in temperature, resulting in a more accurate watch under test conditions and during everyday wear. This was the basis of the high beat watch and a little known story of innovation that took place simultaneously in both Switzerland and Japan in the pursuit of timekeeping excellence. And the other side of the coin is, of course, that's the preponderant response to the quartz crisis, at least from Swiss side, was in fact a return to more artisanal approaches to watchmaking, and in fact a kind of conscious, consistent and calculated antiquarianism. That's one of the reasons that you see very low frequency movements in a lot of the high horological time only pieces that today's independent makers produce. If the higher frequency is understood to somehow produce, somehow result in a more accurate timepiece, a lower frequency movement obviously decreases the intensity of friction in the movement and presumably increases the lifespan of the mechanical movement, increases the intervals between services, and also when you have an exhibition case back with an oversized balance wheel, it just looks more pleasant to the eye, kind of a that slower pace of expansion and contraction looks as if the machine breathes. And of course, you can look at it again from the other side, from the other end of the problematic, where in fact it is a bigger challenge to produce a more accurate, to more precise timepiece with a lower frequency movement. So in fact, that's at least on paper again is a more valiant feat for a watchmaker to make a more accurate watch with a lower frequency movement. And of course, sometimes it's just a cheap trick of reducing the frequency of the movement and thereby gaining some power reserve. Right? We all know the Swatch Group's secret weapon, the Powermatic movement, which has an 80-hour power reserve, right? Which is practically achieved by reducing the frequency of the standard workhorse ETA 2824-2 movement to 3 hertz from 4. The challenges to design and build such a watch were significant, even by today's standards. For example, more power had to be stored and transferred by the mainspring than even the highest speeding movements of the day, operating at 4 hertz, 28,800 beats per hour, 28,800 semi-oscillations per hour. High beat watches had to have thicker mainsprings and consequently larger mainspring barrels in order to provide the extra power needed for the escapement if a power reserve of 40 hours was to be achieved. And that was the gold standard for the time. Of course, nowadays, we usually look for 72 hours, even though that's not always the case across the board. In addition, in general, the number of teeth in the escape wheel had to be increased. This, in turn, put increased strain on the drive train, on the gear train of the movement, and the faster moving movement components could not be lubricated with traditional oils, which were quickly dispersed. Instead, dry lubricants based on molybdenum were required to mitigate increased wear. Relative to the standards of the watch industry just then, major investments were put behind these development efforts, and the resulting high beat movements of this era represented the very peak of the horological achievement in terms of design, engineering, and accuracy. But this era only lasted about a decade, with the advent of quartz watches disrupting the entire mechanical watch industry. And by the mid-1970s, high beat watches were no longer in production. I have somehow prefigured that, so my apologies. But I think it kind of fits my narrative here as well. They had their heyday up until the wake of the quartz crisis, where the tide had, in fact, turned, where the Swiss watches could not necessarily be marketed with their accuracy and precision being their primary virtue, right? Some other way had to be found, some other language had to be invented. Since then, however, 3 of the original high beat manufacturers from the 1960s have reintroduced high beat watches, and these are now once more gaining popularity among collectors. There's something special about the feel of a high beat watch when you handle it and when you listen to it closely. In most cases, these watches were paired with futuristic dials and cases and offered as flagship models from their respective manufacturers. The development was a collaboration between Swiss manufacturers, sometimes in the mid-60s. It is reported that Eberhard, Favre-Leuber, Girard Perregaux, and Zodiac, as well as Doxa, according to some sources, all contributed to the development of a high beat watch movement through some form of collaboration. The joint development was based upon the Adolf Schild 1618 line 1688 at Bosch, and is believed to have focused on the automatic winding mechanism of the movement. Still, each manufacturer ultimately entered the market with a solution so different that there were four distinct movements. It was not even possible to interchange parts between them, so the degree to which there was any joint development is unclear. What is clear among these four collaborating companies is Girard-Perregaux succeeded in bringing the technology to the market first. So let's take a look at some of these watches. I have, again, I've posted the link to the lots in the chat right there. Feel free to highlight any particular lots that you would like me to look at. Let's see if we can find some watches that are in fact part of Gandog's collection. We can start with them and then make our way back to some of the usual suspects, of which there are some interesting examples here. By the way, the prices are given in Swiss crowns. But you can technically divide it by 10 to get the rough number. I love these, by the way. Look at that. Probably the only thing that interests me in IWC's catalog. Coffee cups with Arabic calligraphy on them. Great. Amazing. It's an Eid gift. MashaAllah. I mean, not a surprise, but guys, you know, I don't get any Christmas cards or any Hanukkah gifts from any of the watch brands. So send money now. Beautiful. Okay, where are these? Ah, there we go. The first one, the Longines Ultra Chrome. This is a line they reintroduced just earlier this year with a new dive watch. Some of you might remember. I really loved it, by the way. I loved it when it was released, and I loved it when I got a chance to see it in person when they had that beautiful party on the Queen Mary in Long Beach. But this is the ancestor, basically, which is the Longines Ultra Chrome, part of the High Beat collection, 39 millimeters of interesting pebble-shaped case with a blue dial, a date window, quite an eyesore between 4 and 5 o'clock. You guys know those are the bane of my existence. I really like the case shape. It's so odd that you have to love it. And so odd, of course, that they had to place the crown at 4 o'clock. Of course, it also very helpfully gets it out of the way and stops it from directly digging into your wrist, which is an added advantage. This auction, by the way, closes in about 2 days and a half. December at around 9:30, between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m. Central European time. The current bid is under the reserve price. The reserve has not yet been met, but it is right around, the current bid that is right around 217 in US dollars. This piece is based on the Longines caliber 431. The Ultracron made its debut in 1967, celebrating Longines' centenary. And obviously, Longines having its legacy as an Olympic timekeeper had some serious investment in these high beats movements, which they had developed first as a limited number of observatory chronometers, and which they rehearsed, or rather approached differently and built entirely in-house as a wristwatch movement caliber 431. Longines was the first to use, probably the first to use, dry lubrication of fast-moving components, the Lot SA knots, which supposedly solved the problems of rapid wear on highly strained, high beat movement components. They were all these calibers: 430 with sweep center seconds, 431, the one you are seeing at this watch, sweep center seconds with dates, and 432, which is a two-hander, and 433, which also has a date. Longines apparently also had hand-wound high-beat movements, which featured a hacking seconds hand calibers 6952 with dates and 6972 with day dates. They were advertised as the world's most accurate watch, at least from 1973 onwards. Ultracron watches were guaranteed accurate within 1 minute per month, or plus minus 2 seconds per day, which is still quite a good standard for a mechanical watch of our day too. That was the Longines Ultracron, for which the bidding currently stands at around $220, with 2 days and a half left on the clock. There's the Seiko Lord Marvel. Oh, that's interesting. 36,000. This is much more in the mold of a classic dress watch that we today see in the Seiko Presage line, and even as part of the Grand Seiko line, scaling right under 36 millimeters in diameter and with a high beat movement. This piece actually has had its reserve price met, with the bidding standing right around 470 US dollars right now, with 2.5 days to go. One second, guys. Sorry about that. While major players in the Swiss watch industry collaborated in the development of the first European high-beat watch, on the other side of the world, the same development goal was the subject of intra-company competition in Japan's foremost watch manufacturer, Seiko. Seiko's Daini and Suwa factories, each with their own research and development capabilities, engaged in a fraternal competition that was sanctioned by the ownership at the highest level in the parent company. The Suwa factory brand, known as Suwa Seikosha or Seiko, and later also manufacturing watches under the brand Grand Seiko, had developed a high-quality manual wind movement, caliber 5740, for their flagship watch model, the Lord Marvel. That should be my villain name. The first version of this movement, the 5740A, was introduced in 1964, operated at 18,000 semi-oscillations per hour, VPH. It was followed by the 5740B, which operated at 19,800 VPH and introduced in 1966, just months after the introduction of the 32A by Girard Perregaux in 1967. By a leap of development, Suwa Seikosha introduced the caliber 5740C that oscillated at 36,000 VPH. Watches with this movement were branded Lord Marvel 36,000 and were manufactured from 1967 to 1978. So what you're looking at right now is basically an ancestor of the Grand Seiko watches today, especially the high beat movements. And the Daini factory basically became King Seiko. Those are the ancestors of the King Seiko with their caliber 45 KS, which also has a 36,000 VPH, meaning 5 hertz beat rate. Again, this piece, with about 2.5 days to go on the clock, is currently being bid at around 470 US dollars. Seiko Lord Marvel, 36,000, high beat, an ancestor of sorts to today's Grand Seiko. They're pretty straightforward, by the way. You can find all sorts of information for the terms and conditions if you were to make a purchase, how much the transportation would cost, depending on where you find yourself on the globe. So if you're seriously interested in bidding, that is something I would urge you to look into, just to make sure. Make sure how much you might need to pay in terms of a buyer's premium. Make sure how much you should expect to pay in terms of shipping, in terms of the additional fees related to taxes and customs and whatever else. There's another Lord Marvel with Arabic numbers, very similar piece, and a linen dial. This piece is being currently bid at around 312 US dollars with 2.5 days left on the clock, but the reserve has not been met. There's another Longines Ultra Chrome. It's a little bigger, and that has an interesting black crosshair dial, a very different aesthetic, and more of a round / tonneau shaped case, right? Not altogether round, but not entirely barrel shaped either. Quite classical. From late 60s with a black crosshair dial, date at 3 o'clock, sweep center seconds. That piece seems to have attracted some attention, so it's being bid at an amount above 650 US dollars, with about 2.5 days to go on the clock. There's a Girard-Perregaux Gyromatic from around 1970. Girard-Perregaux was the first to bring this technology into the markets. Their caliber 32A is therefore known as the original high beat wristwatch. In 1965 to 1966, GP developed the caliber 32A as the first serially produced wristwatch movement oscillating at 36,000 vibrations per hour in the pursuit of chronometer certification for its high-end wristwatches. The 32A was a further development of the gyromatic movement, which had been developed earlier by adding a proprietary Girard-Perregaux automatic winding unit and rotor to a high-grade ébauche from Adolf Schild. The new gyromatic high-frequency HF movement won acclaim and chronometer certification from the Bureau officiel de contrôle de la marche des montres, with testing for 15 days in 6 positions under 3 temperatures. It really sounds like some sexual escapade, but it's really chronometer certification with especially good results noted on the chronometer certification. These chronometers were the original Girard-Perregaux Gyromatic HF watch series. A limited number of these were submitted to the Neuchâtel Observatory for additional 45 days of testing and were certified as the original high beat observatory chronometers. In addition, for this development of the Girard-Perregaux, For this development, Girard-Perregaux was awarded the Centenary Prize by the observatory. That's the Neuchâtel Observatoire Chronométrique et Astronomique. Descendants of the caliber 32A, such as the caliber 440, found their way into later GP watches. This is the GP Gyromatic HF, hours, minutes, sweep center seconds, day dates, with a tonneau-shaped case and an integrated mesh-style bracelet in stainless steel. The piece is all in stainless steel, and the case has a diameter right around 38.5 millimeters. A blue dial piece on the integrated bracelets. Always an interesting proposition. And with about 2.5 days to go on the clock, this is being bid at right now around $880 US, with the reserve price being already met. There's a Zodiac now, again with a blue dial and a day dates complication. This is the Zodiac SST 36,000. Comes with a beautiful presentation case as well, and even with its original hang tags, as you can see there. .34 millimeters of a round case and extended lugs. The Zodiac caliber 86 is another result of the Swiss collaboration. Little information is available regarding the actual development of Zodiac's first high beat calibers, 76, 86, and 88, other than they appear to be the result of an independent effort focused on the automatic winding mechanism, also based on the same Adolf Schild Bosch as the Girard-Perregaux 32A. The Zodiac movements feature a Triovis micrometer regulator, and a 40-hour power reserve. These calibers were not actually introduced in Zodiac watches until 1970 in a number of different case shapes and styles, and it appears that all of these carried the SST, which refers to, or which abbreviates, split second timing 36,000 sub-brand on the dial, as the current piece does. And the current piece actually runs on the caliber 86, 21 joules, sweep center seconds, and a day dates complication. This is the Zodiac SST 3600, part of the High Beat collection that belongs to our community member, Gondog. auctioned by Bukowskis for about 2 days and a half left on the clock. This piece is being bid at right around 440 US dollars. The reserve is not met yet. Off on Smash, how are you doing, man? Hit the like button. Good evening to you as well. Happy holidays. The Omega scandal was, well, I will lead you to the playlist, but it was about basically the record-breaking Omega Speedmaster that never was, that turned out to be a timepiece that was collaboratively engineered and Frankensteined by an international network of shady dealers, and was basically helped along the way also by at least some insiders from Omega to reach, allegedly, to reach a record-breaking price at the end. Check it out. It's a playlist that I called Omega Lao. Let me see. Right here, I sent the link to the playlist. Next up is a watch perhaps that is more familiar and therefore more interesting to many. It's a version of the Zenit El Primero chronograph, which of course prides itself as being not only the first self-winding chronograph movement, but also a high beat one at that. This is the reference A787, which has been successfully revived in the lineup today as well. At least in a similar guise. This is the original, so to speak. The first integrated self-winding chronograph movements featuring start-stop timing precise down to 1/10 of a second. That is a description of the Zenit El Primero, the story of the development of this movement as the first integrated, which is to say not modular, self-winding chronograph in the late 1960s, is now legendary, along with the story of El Primero's resurrection in terms of its manufacturing in the 1990s. Of course, in 1988, the base of this movement also gave us a new generation of the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, and it was, in fact, perhaps integral to the rise of that particular player in the holy trinity of hype watches, a Rolex Daytona has been one of the most demanded watches in the world, at least since the late 20th century, certainly after the introduction of the in-house movement around year 2000 as well. But the model line itself, the name Daytona may not have survived, and certainly would not have survived in the same way if it weren't for that generation, if it weren't for that transition that was given to us by the reference 16520, which was powered by the caliber 4030, which was in its turn based on Zenit El Primero caliber 400. The El Primero, of course, introduced in early 1969, was not only one of the earliest, was not only the first high beat chronograph movement, but it was also one of the earliest high beat watches of any kind. As far back as 1962, Zenit considered creating the first self-winding chronograph with the aim of launching it in 1965 for the centenary of their manufacture. Coinciding with these plans, between 1966 and 67, Zenit's management decided to develop a high-frequency movement oscillating at a rate of 36,000 vibrations per hour. According to one employee, in the 1960s, everyone was starting to get into high frequency, so we wanted to launch something new. We had to aim for the top. It was the Zenit chronometry department which prepared the parts for the observatory competitions that was responsible for the initial research and development of this high beat movement. The challenge that Zenit set for itself was to create the first ultra-thin, high-frequency, integrated automatic chronograph caliber, beating at 36,000 vibrations per hour, 5 hertz, and it would thus be able to accurately measure 1/10 of a second. 4 years after the target date of 1965, the caliber 3019 PHC movement was introduced in the first El Primero references, A384, A385, A386. The caliber 3016 was also introduced in the affiliated company Movado's Datron HS360 at around the same time. That, by the way, is a beautiful watch. It's one of those forgotten watches from the late 60s and early 70s. It is the most complicated version as it's featured in the Astronic HS360 with the addition of triple dates as well as a moon phase indicator. Really, really beautiful piece. I have previously made a video on that as well, and I'm gonna drop the link for that. If you're interested, you should certainly check it out. And why not also drop a like inside. Hey, Hoff, it's Jose is a frequent enough guest on this channel, and I think the other channels got the idea from me to invite him to speak on subjects. So you can always thank me for involving Periscope. There's a whole playlist with the episodes involving Periscope beyond the whole Omega scandal as well. So we're looking at the Zenit El Primero reference A787 with the caliber 3019 PHC, the high beat integrated self-winding chronograph measuring down to 1/10 of a second with that emblematic barrel-shaped case and a silvered white dial in this instance. I think it's a beautiful watch, and I kind of love the presentation on this Bund strap as well. Very, very fitting indeed. Very beautiful piece, and in fact with a matching buckle as well. The case is in decent enough condition too, which always helps. This particular piece is nowhere near yet of its reserve price either, but there's about 2.5 days to go, and the bidding currently stands at around $2,500 US. That's a great watch. And again, guys, as you know, these kinds of smaller auction houses, whether it's Bukowskis, Brun Rasmussen, which is another affiliate of the Bonhams, if I'm not mistaken, based this time in Denmark, in Aachen. I mean, this auction itself is one of those instances that testify to the fact that there are still great watches out there that you can grab on these kinds of occasions, really for a great deal, if not always a steal. But there's certainly some great deals to be had here and elsewhere. We have 2 more pieces as part of the high beat collection, and then a number of other interesting timepieces as well. So let's go down the line. We're looking at the watch that is now properly branded Grand Seiko, day dates, high beat 36,000, black dial, again, classic dress watch, something of a more angular case in this instance, with the older style of Grand Seiko branding, which features the Seiko signature at 12 o'clock and the GS logo above the high beat 36,000 branding at 6 o'clock, with the dates indicated through a window framed at 3 o'clock, sweep center seconds, and with that distinctive Seiko medallion, the Grand Seiko medallion, gilt medallion at the center of the case back as well. This was once again a development of the Suwa factory of Seiko, which later became Grand Seiko. And this particular one is a rare black dial example of the Grand Seiko High Beats 36,000, reference 6145 8000-8000, designed by Taro Tanaka, with the GS 6145A automatic movements, 25 joules, 40-hour power reserve, sweep center seconds with the date indicator at 3 o'clock. This piece has also not yet hit its reserve, but it's being currently bid at around $878 US, with about 2.5 days left on the clock. This is a Grand Seiko date, high beat 36,000. The diameter of the piece scales right around 36.5 millimeters. And the last example from the high beat collection is Favre Leuba Harpoon number 2. Favre Leuba is actually one of the oldest watch brands. I think its year of establishment goes into the early years of the 18th century, 1737, I think. The Favre Leuba caliber FL 1164 is another result of the Swiss collaboration, based once again on the Adolf Schild Bosch. It was released in 1970 in models such as the Sea Raider and Harpoon. You're looking now at Harpoon 2. This movement, FL 1164, appears to be the result of Favre Leuba's own solution for an automatic winding mechanism, although some specifications and components are in fact shared with the Zodiac caliber 86, such as the Triovis micrometer regulator. This is the Favre Leuba Harpoon number 2, 36,000, reference 36013, with the caliber FL 1164, self-winding movement with 21 joules, sweep center seconds, and a day-dates function. Stainless steel, 35 millimeters in diameter, and with a matching bracelets. Interesting dial in black and blue, kind of black with blue accents, which is of course quite obvious on the seconds track, but also in terms of the accents on the hour markers and the hands as well. This is another piece that has not yet hit the reserve. Once again, with about 2.5 days to go. It's simply standing right under 200 US dollars right now. A very interesting piece. It comes also with an additional nubuck style strap as well, which can't hurt. It looks quite cool on its matching stainless steel bracelets as well. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other interesting watches. There's a fascinating pocket watch there that is a Perpcal chrono with a chiming function as well, with a minute repeater. .59 millimeters in diameter, in 18 karat gold. The case is apparently signed George Stockwell and Company. There's a London import stamp hallmarked for 1912, 1913. Approximately 135 grams, excluding the chain. Apparently the movement is running, but there's not much of any other information provided. And they also say explicitly that they don't guarantee the function of the movement, but it features a perpetual calendar, Roman numerals on a white dial, blued hands, which includes hours and minutes in a spade style, minute hands elegantly twisted, and there is also a moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock that shows its phase through a crescent-shaped aperture. I'm assuming this is for the minute repeating function, and right here, or rather, probably this is for the start, stop, and resets of the chronograph at 12 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock, that's probably the pusher for the minute repeater. Not the most elegantly finished movement by any stretch of the imagination. It's nice to see a chronograph movement always from the back. Again, with about 2.5 days to go, this piece is being bid at around 2,634 in US dollars, and the reserve price has indeed been met. So the winning bid, or the highest bid, will indeed be the winning bid at this point. for this perpetual calendar chronograph with a minute repeater, 59 millimeter yellow gold pocket watch. There's a Jaeger-LeCoultre Memovox, but the dial seems absolutely I don't want to use any mean words here. Not the most attractive, let's put it this way. There were a few interesting chronographs that I wanted to look at. One, Hoya, and the other, Angelus. Let's take a look at this Hoya chronograph. Quite oversized for its time, 37.5 millimeters in diameter. The dial is slightly damaged, and considering its oversized appearance and black dial, you can kind of imagine the provenance of a watch like this from the 40s. It is a hand-wound chronograph built on the base of Vajou caliber 71. Syringe hands, oversized Arabic numerals, and big eyes for the chronograph register, pump pushers, a classic pilot's chronograph of its time. Here's a closer look at the Vajou 71 base that powers this 40s Hoya chronograph, which, with about 2.5 days to go, is being bid at around $1,950 in the US currency. What you're looking at is an Angelus Chronodato, which forms the core of their contemporary offering as well, even though it has been heavily redesigned, perhaps beyond recognition. It's a watch that combines a chronograph movement, a hand-wound chronograph, with a triple dates function, with the month at 6 o'clock, the day of the week with the month at 12 o'clock, the day of the week at 6 o'clock, and pointer dates indicated along the periphery of the dial. That's there's also a tachometer, base 100, that is in a concentric circle. Inscribed in blue. There's a lot of interesting colors. Heat blued syringe hands for the hour and minutes, as well as the centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand. Two big eyes for the chronograph register. At 9 o'clock, you have the running seconds, and at 3, you have a 45-minute counter. Very cool, interesting watch. Of course, not in the most enviable shape. Certainly an interesting species from its own period of time. And Angelus Chronodato, which is a model they introduced in the early 40s. Kind of contemporary, you might say, to Patek's 1518 or the Universal Genève Tri-Compacts. Of course, this doesn't have the moon phase indicator of those couple of watches, and it hardly has the perpetual calendar functionality of the 1518. But nevertheless, a very unique and useful design, which has its own aesthetic imprint. The company was recently resuscitated, but it's in its original cast. It had already gone under in 1978. This Angelus Chronodato in a 38 millimeter stainless steel case, triple calendar chronograph watch, is currently being bid at around 1,122 in US dollars, with about 2 days and a half to go. JB asks, what up, Hoff? Speaking of triple calendar chronographs, there is a new Breitling Datora, the 42 millimeter, the B25 triple calendar chronograph with a moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock and a Salmon dial. I think it has been in the back of my mind, and I have said something already about this in the video I did and released yesterday on Breitling acquiring Universal Genève and reviving the brand as a kind of high horological sibling to Breitling. And I think the premier lineup overall and the fate of this watch may have had something to do with their decision related to Universal. I'm wondering if they discovered with the release of this watch that people were at least not yet ready or perhaps simply not comfortable with the idea of buying complicated, elegant, prestige timepiece with Breitling's branding. Don't take me wrong, again, I think under the current ownership since 2017 and under Georges Kahn's leadership, the brand has restored its reputation, I think, quite successfully. But I think in our time, Breitling is simply known as a maker of very sporty, masculine, largely aviation related, but but overall sports inspired timepieces. I think it, unless you are a true dyed in the wool vintage enthusiast, you won't necessarily be in touch with, you won't necessarily be in tune with Breitling's broader legacy of making all kinds of chronograph-based wristwatches, right? It's just not something I believe that strikes a chord with most contemporary collectors, because this was a great looking watch. This was, I think, a very appealing watch. Of course, it received the ire of the average person online as quote unquote being a Patek homage or whatever else, which, pardon me again, in light of Breitling's own legacy, just sounds like an ignorant statement. But nevertheless, something needs to be said about how this particular watch really didn't land with Breitling's own aimed base, so to speak, Breitling's own intended audience. By the way, B25 refers to Breitling's movements this watch's movements which is presented as in-house, but it is actually a modular chronograph movement that uses the ETA 2892 as its base, draws its fundamental architecture from the Valjoux 7750. It has a column wheel action and an oscillating pinion, and it is completed in terms of its production and finishing in-house by Breitling. self-winding movements. I think overall, this is still a compelling package, especially if you get a good deal on it on the secondary markets. Something like this auction could well be that exact opportunity. The watch is slightly oversized, but not too large by any standards, 42 millimeters in stainless steel, with the salmon dial providing just a very elegant and delightful contrast with that white metal of the case. The syringe hands and the Arabic numerals, I think, give the watch an overall throwback vibe, and the blued hands coordinates really delightfully with the night sky of the moon phase indicator. I kind of like this denim style watch box or kind of watch roll. Very cool, even though I always have a kind of allergy to brands like Breitling and IWC, which have significantly reduced their presentation material, the boxes and everything else that goes with a new watch, in the name of saving the environment, right? Just like these hotels refuse to change or make your bed or give you new towels because they're in the business of saving the environment, of course, not hospitality, if you were mistaken. But that's a cool role for a single watch. So this is a piece that is untouched, new old stock in a sense, with stickers, its certificates not activated, the watch is not even registered, from 2021. The Breitling Premier B25 Datora 42 triple calendar moon phase with self-winding chronograph, currently being bid at around 7,300 in US dollars, with about 2.5 days to go. The reserve price is not yet met. I want to see what the list price of this piece is. I think it's about 14,000 before tax. So there we go. And by the way, I think if you get this watch from Breitling, they do give you the book that goes with it, the book that's written by no one other than Mr. Fred Mandelbaum, the premier story that delves into, in fact, the entire backstory of the vintage inspiration of this newly energized premier line that exists in Breitling's catalog. There's a 16700. Basically kind of a modernized version of the GMT Master, not the GMT Master 2. Slightly thinner, apparently matched with newer bracelets. The watch itself being from the mid-90s. With the Pepsi bezel insert. This watch is being bid at 7,800 US dollars roundabout. Again, the reserve price has not yet been met, with a little less than 2.5 days to go as it happens. There's a reduced size Royal Oak, the reference 4100 ST, the 35 millimeter case size, kind of a smaller and even more delicate version, a predecessor of the reference 14790, which is kind of like the iconic neo-vintage reduced sized version of the Jumbo, so to speak. This is from late 70s with a slightly thinner octagonal bezel and a smaller case diameter. A white tapisserie dial, stainless steel, with the case and bracelet with tapering interlinks. The dial, of course, should be an almost immediate tell. It doesn't belong to the period, not with its color, not with its larger tapisserie pattern. It's a later service dial. It still gives the watch an interesting look. The clasp also seems to be a replacement. A little bit of a project watch look, to be honest. Not necessarily something I prefer, but could be an interesting deal, even though it's already over $10,000. being bid at 10,732 in US dollars, and in fact has not even hit its reserve. In my case, the suggestion would be to turn around and run away, but it's there and it could be an option for someone. There's a beautiful gondolo piece. This is one of my favorite takes on Patek's rectangular watch, Patek's stab at Art Deco design. You can see, of course, elements and parallels to many watches by Cartier and Jaeger-LeCoultre in this particular piece. The larger case design might remind you, alternatively, of Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso or even Tank Chinoise. Here, the case is rendered in platinum with 18-karat pink gold, providing a certain contrast. The dial has a kind of an inkling of an Art Deco sunray design with the dagger-shaped hour markers precisely doubling up as rays of the sun, a single Arabic numeral at 12, Dauphine hands matching the pink gold shades of those accents as well, a ribbed center of the dial, which perhaps contributes to that solar imagery. Wonderful gray dial with seconds on the subdial at 6 o'clock. Again, a two-tone case executed in platinum with pink gold accents. As you can see here, PT 950, AU 750, with the appropriate hallmarks, which are still quite crisp. With all the product literature and the original papers that go with it. I'm trying to see if the box is included as well. It's not been noted here, and it hasn't been photographed either. But at any rate, this is a very beautiful and interesting piece. I think in terms of differently shaped Patek Philippe pieces, this is probably a close second for me after the ellipse, or ellipse d'or, as they also call it, the golden ellipse. I do like the Eiffel Tower, the pagoda, the hourglass, etc. as well, but probably these are more along the lines of my taste. This is once again a Patek Philippe Gondolo 5111 PR, platinum and pink gold, a two-tone rectangular Art Deco style by Patek Philippe Gondolo that is being bid at around almost 11,000 US dollars with 2 days and 10 hours left on the clock. too small. I don't know. It depends. It depends on your wrist, Van Lux. Might be too small, but I've always been an advocate for wearing watches in accordance with its style, right? It's a dress watch. It's not supposed to be too large. I mean, I like a Grand Thai Reverso. I like my Grand Date, which is a little larger, but I'm kind of exasperated at this point in time, um, because of due to the growing size of the Reverso. Like every time they release a new model, the case will have grown both in length and width, um, and perhaps also in thickness as well. Whereas I'm more of a fan of the Grand Thai, ideally with an ultra thin movement, because a dress watch should be unobtrusive. A dress watch should be discreet. A dress watch would ideally disappear on your wrist, at least disappear to you, to the wearer, but would somehow have a way of showing itself to the people around you. Um, so I don't know. I don't think there are such things as too small or too big when it comes to watches, um, in that sort of non-distinct general way. But again, whatever floats your boat. This is even a smaller piece, for example, one of those integrated bracelets, dress watches that were very frequently found among Patek's offering, especially in the 70s. You have basically also a dial that has a similar snakeskin-like pattern that replicates the design of the bracelet. This is an even smaller watch, which is 20 by 23 millimeters. Again, an important thing to keep in mind, don't take me wrong. So I appreciate that Van Lux expressed his opinion there. It's really just a matter of what you prefer as your style. Honestly, when you are wearing a gold dress watch with an integrated bracelet, you probably want it to be small, at least not too large. It's already a watch that has quite a presence. So when it's too large, it can come off as rather gaudy. And maybe that's exactly what you're going for. I don't know. But I think dress watches like this should be as small as possible. This is an integrated bracelet, 18 karat yellow gold watch from early 70s by Patek Philippe, with 2 days and 10 hours to go on the clock. And having met its reserve, the piece is currently being bid at an amount in excess of 3,700 in US dollars. Same. If you were talking about the Royal Oak, it's the same. I think for some people, even the jumbo is too small, right? And I understand maybe that's not what they're looking for in the Royal Oak. To me, Royal Oak is quite a strong statement in terms of its design. So a lot of the reduced size pieces, whether we are talking about the 4100, which is kind of the ancestor of the reduced size, around 35 millimeters, 14790, which is around 36 millimeters, kind of the Goldilocks region for the reduced size. Of course, there are more modern 37 millimeter references, like even the contemporary 555, so to speak, right? 15550. There's the 14800, which is a slightly different design, designed to be mounted on a strap, actually, and not the integrated bracelets. Anyway, I think those are actually great. And they're even 33 millimeter references, like the 56-175, which, you know, again, depending on the wearer and depending on the vibe you are going after, can be perfectly fine. The so-called championship, for example, AP's first collaboration with Nick Faldo, right, on the occasion of his double championship win. 56-175 TT, the one with the tantalum case and integrated bracelets, and the stainless steel octagonal bezel and the tapering center links of the bracelets. I think that's an amazing watch. Weighs a ton for its size because of the tantalum material, and actually has a lot of presence on the wrist. The kind you would not see from a lot of 40 millimeter watches, if you ask me. But you know, it's just taste at the end of the day. It's just style. If it's not yours, if you can't make it your own, you might as well move away from it. And I appreciate that. There is a Langewan time zone, the older iteration, which you can distinguish by the lack of that corrector for the daylight savings time in the arrow here that is located on the reference time dial at 5 o'clock, and also from the arrow indicators for the day-night functions for both the reference and local time. So this is the early iteration. Of course, as always, you have the pusher for a quick correction of the oversized dates, and an additional pusher, of course, for the world time function, for going through the 24 distinct time zones, one at a time. You have a reference time, you have a subsidiary dial for reference time at around 4 o'clock, for the off-center main dial, which is preserved for local time. That dial has a small subdial for seconds at 6 o'clock. And of course, there's the obligatory power reserve indicator, up and auf, down and up, at 3 o'clock, and the oversized dates at 2 o'clock. The Langewan time zone is housed in an oversized Lange 1 case, here rendered in 18 karat pink gold, 42 millimeters in diameter. The piece itself comes with its box and the original certificate from 2009 and a service receipt from 2016. The outer box is included, and there's also the matching 19 karat pink gold buckle as well, apparently. There we go. And of course, as always, the best part of a time-worn Lange piece, the 3/4 plate rendered in German silver, a particular alloy of nickel, zinc, and copper that has taken on this distinct champagne-like tint as the years have gone by. It's one of the unique things about these watches, that they take on the kind of patina on the bridge plates of the movement, thanks to the unique properties of German silver. Very cool. I think the two-tone anthracite gray dial is a great complement to the pink gold case as well. Again, very useful complication, and in a rendering that's quite unique and almost immediately recognizable. Quite unique to Lange und Söhne, as I should say, and almost immediately recognizable as a Lange watch, and a Lange 1 at that. With 2 days and 10 hours left on the clock, the piece is currently being bid at around 26,750, but it has not yet met its reserve price. So there's some ways to go yet. Pardon me, and it might not even sell. We have about 20 minutes left on the clock. I think I will take a look at maybe 2-3 more watches and then sign off. So if you have any last minute questions, feel free to send them in with a super chat. As always, you know how to support the channel. The links are available in the video description. You can also always become a member. Anything that you contribute to this channel returns to you in terms of the quality and quantity of contents. And as you know, again, this is a channel that has no sponsors, that takes all its power, all its legitimacy from its audience. So your support is crucial for its sustenance, for its survival, and for its expansion as well. If nothing else, please hit the like button and spread the word, share the link, and help me expand the community. There's an Alan Silberstein Chrono Bauhaus, a very distinctive design, as you guys know, using those three primal colors on its hands, especially the hour, minutes, and the centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand. But you can see how that visual aesthetic is extended to the hands within the chronograph registers as well. Yellow for the hour counter, blue again for the running seconds, and for the moon phase, for the 24-hour indicator at 12 o'clock as well, there is a red squiggly hand. There's a 24-hour indicator, a day-night indicator, as it were, at 12 o'clock. Again, continuous running seconds at 9 o'clock, and a 12-hour counter for the chronograph at 6 o'clock. Day-date indicators at 3 o'clock, which are surrounded by the brand's signatures. The case itself is stainless steel, but has rubberized elements. And the pushers, as you can see, are uniquely rendered in geometric shapes and colorful accents that match with the rest of the aesthetic. And as you glimpse through the case back, you see how elements of the movements are likewise decorated to resonate with that selection of colors. Once again, this is not a watch, not at all my aesthetic or my taste, but still, it is a watch that I like seeing as a unique flavor, as a different aesthetic. The movement is based on the Lemania 5100. And the watch is produced in a series of 999 examples. This is the Alan Silberstein Chrono Bauhaus. Which comes as a full set, including all the boxes and papers, and even the outer box. "40 millimeters in diameter." With about 2 days and 13 hours to go, the piece is currently being bid at $2,634 in US dollars, but the reserve has not yet been met, I should say. Let's do 2 more. And then I'm out, then I'm off. There's an Omega Speedmaster Broad Arrow from early 2000s. And stainless steel with a matching tachymeter bezel. The classic 3-register look with the black dial, but with an opening at 6 o'clock for a date indicator. The hands, as the nickname for the watch has it, are broad arrow hands. The watch is mounted on its original bracelets and is presented in an Omega presentation box. I don't think the papers are included. It's currently being bid at an amount in excess of 1,500 in US dollars, but the reserve has not yet been met, with about 2 days and 11 hours to go. Again, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. I'm here with watch contents almost every day, both in the form of live streams and shorter videos, which I supplement every so often with interviews with industry insiders and other collectors. I have a new series with weekly installments on iconic models, which I take on historically and horologically, but also supplement those episodes with a serious record of how these watches perform on the market, especially in terms of auction results. It's a series called Rare, References and Auction Results, with 4 episodes under my belt now. There has been an episode on the FP Journe tourbillon pieces. There was an episode on Patek Philippe minute repeaters. There was an episode on the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, especially the Paul Newman variations, the vintage pieces. There has also been a piece on the Daniel Roth era Breguet, and on Friday, hopefully, we will have an episode on the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso. I look forward to seeing all of you then and there. If you want to check out the series, kind of take a look at the previous episodes and bookmark your place and save the date for the next one. Feel free to peruse the playlist that I just linked in the chat. Just take a look quickly and leave a like if you like. That would really help, and I would be eternally grateful, and I would forever be your friend. So please do that. I'm very close to signing off. Let's take a look at another couple of Omegas. There's a Moonwatch from around 2014, from about a decade ago already, with the caliber 1861, with the Hasselite crystal and closed case back. So the classic Moonwatch with the hand-wound caliber 1861, 42 millimeters with that classic Speedmaster professional case. With all the distinctive elements of the Speedmaster that so many recognize and love, including the hippocampus logo on the medallion, and of course the inscription that goes with commemorating what was the first watch on the moon. The reason I'm laughing is, of course, I'm reminded of that iconic segment where my friend asks Archie, can you say man on the fucking moon? And Archie screams into the camera, man on the fucking moon, with this laughing maniacally. I miss this guy. I wish he would jump on the live streams once every so often. I know it's a difficult situation in Israel now. I know he's busier than ever, but it'd be nice to see this. 10h10, we miss you, man. So this is an Omega Speedmaster, man on the fucking moon, the Moonwatch, with about 2 days and 11 hours left on the clock, and with the reserve price not yet met, the current bid stands at $3,610 in US dollars. And speaking of this, there's also a Seamaster that looks like the one he has, the pre-bond Seamaster Professional 200, with that integrated bracelet aesthetic, with Mercedes hands here. I kind of like it. I like these sorts of throwback designs. As you guys know, this is a late 80s example with a quartz movement, actually stainless steel case with the original integrated bracelets. Of course, that's rotational dive timing bezel and a date indicator at 3 o'clock. With that gilt accent on the clasp that has the Omega signature and the logo, the letter Omega, of course. And a presentation box, which I believe is an Omega box as well. This is an Omega pre-bond Seamaster Professional 200 on an integrated bracelet and with a quartz movement. This piece is currently being bid at around $700 US, and the reserve price has been met with 2 days and 11 hours left on the clock. All right, we have a few more minutes, so I'll choose one last watch to wrap things up, to close things off. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for chatting with me, at least in text. It's been a pleasure to be back. Let's take a look at the original Air King, which used to be a decent watch when they were not trying so hard to make it something so different and distinctive that it became all but the kitchen sink. Unfortunately, this is a piece that's a little bit of a thrown together. The reference 5500 is a great reference if you if you find it in decent condition. This piece has a newer bracelet. It's not a 50s bracelet, and also replacement hands, I believe. But the black dial is always quite interesting. Obviously, being a Rolex watch belonging to the late 50s, this is a 34 millimeter piece. The Air Kings were much smaller then, being always a junior / entry level model of sorts. And of course, the 5500 is one of those essential models, one of those fundamental models that really put the Air King on the map. So to find one in original condition and well preserved would be actually a great catch. Unfortunately, this is not it in so many ways. Nevertheless, it's a teaching moment, if you ask me, for this Rolex Air King reference 5500 34 millimeter piece mounted on a later bracelet and with replacement hands, not in the best condition really. With 2 days and 9 hours left on the clock, the piece is currently being bid at an amount in excess of 1,900, but it has not yet hit the reserve. So the ultimate fate of the watch still hangs in balance. this has been a quick return. We talked a little bit about the recent developments, a few different mentions of some of the most interesting stories of the year early on, with Jake Brooks's recommendation and his encouragement, really, with this super chat, which is well appreciated. Really, these kinds of things keep the lights on. So I really, really appreciate your consistent support. All the members as well. Thank you. I look forward to catching up with you again soon, probably on Thursday, but hopefully soon enough, with the references and auction results episode that will be dedicated to the JLC Reverso on Friday. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the videos. For example, the most recent piece on the revival of Universal Genève. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I have watch content basically every day here, and at least hit the like button. That always helps. Sorry, I'm a little low energy today, but trust that I will return in fine form soon enough. Take care.